Hello and welcome to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. We get curious about all things gender, sex, and sexuality, as well as relationships, feminism, the inclusive kind, mental health and kink, and all that makes us humans unique and diverse. From body positivity to body dysmorphia, it's all welcome here. Come with us on a journey of inclusion, acceptance, and respect. I'm your host, Esther Lemons. I identify as a cisgender woman, and my pronouns are she and her. In this episode, I have a conversation with Rachel Lange, a parent, freelance writer and artist, as well as editor of QueerPGH, a community-led publication in Pittsburgh. Rachel loves to hear they-them pronouns, but is not offended by she or he if they are well intended. They are a non-binary queer autistic person. Find out what that means to Rachel in this episode. We also talk about questioning everything and looking at things differently, being gender non-conforming in different cultures, freeing yourself from gender roles, being a non-binary parent, and giving yourself permission to do things the way you want. It was recorded on the 9th of February 2021. Now let's get into the episode. Hello and welcome. What's your name?
My name is Rachel Lange.
Hello, Rachel.
I am 43 years old and I live in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in the United States.
Tell me about the labels you use.
I fairly late in life came to the term of non-binary, but I've always felt in my brain that I was neither male nor female, but also kind of both. And I didn't come to the word until late in life, and I didn't tell anybody that I had come to the word until much later in life. So I think I've come out to most people in the last 4 years, and so non-binary to me is that feeling of male, female, and something in between, and also neither at the same time. I felt non-binary since high school, since before that. And frankly, I've been a bit inscrutable as to what gender I am walking down the street in my life. So, in high school, people yelled out the window of their cars, "Are you a man or a woman?" And at the time I said, yes. And nowadays I would say, no. And I guess I came to the term in my 40s or in my late 30s, and it became more widely used and people knew what it meant. So I was comfortable saying that, but it's been pretty much true for my whole existence. Even with my secondary sex characteristics, I'm a very big person. You can't tell this on a podcast, but I'm not putting it in metric. But I think it's like 180 centimeters. Is that 6 feet? Something like that. Am I right? Is that
Something
super
like
tall?
that. I don't do feet, to be honest. I know metric, actually, because I'm Dutch. So, yeah, that's tall.
You know metric. So is 180 centimeters a tall person, a reasonably tall person?
It is tall. Yeah.
It is tall, but like possible.
Yeah.
Not like, 3 meters or anything. Yeah. I think I'm 180 centimeters. And I don't know what my weight is, but it's huge. So I'm a big person. So I'm a very imposing person. So even when I would present more femme, I would go to different places and they would still assume I was a man or assume I was a transgender woman. And people would say something, and it's kind of, they might call me sir, or they might call me he, or something like that, just to make a point about how transphobic they were. Other than that particular instance, I don't really even care too much about pronouns. When I look like a man, when I go to the store and I've got a mask on or a beard growing, I definitely, sometimes people will think I'm a man and they will say sir, and that's fine. That's absolutely fine. But when I had long hair and I was wearing a dress, nowadays it'd have to be a wig, but if I do look feminine and people would say he, I would be uncomfortable. But I feel incredible joy when people use they, them pronouns for me, because it feels so validating. And I wasn't going to push that issue at all. I don't feel bad being called she or he, but oh my gosh, the first few times I heard they, applying it to myself, it was just euphoric. It was just like, yeah, yes. exactly. This person is acknowledging that I'm, somewhere in the middle gender wise, and respecting it. And that felt so good that, that
Mm,
I tried to ask people to use my pronouns elsewhere as well.
mhm,
I'm a linguist by training, and honestly, I wish we'd gone with it, but it seems so dehumanizing.
mm,
I didn't, that wouldn't have been my choice. I mean, back when I was thinking about this, the first few times back in high school, I was trying the neo pronouns, trying to use them, that kind of thing. It was hard. I wouldn't have voted for they them, but now that it's here, I'm accepting it, and it's the most prevalent, it seems.
mm. It is, and in the English language, it's actually quite an
Mhm.
easy one,
Yes.
isn't it? Because in other
Yeah.
languages, it's not quite that straightforward,
Oh, I know.
right? Yeah.
But what did my friend who lives in France said they have a neo pronoun. It's only used in the community. It was like "iel" or something like that, and it sounds so pretty. "Iel," like instead of "il" or "elle."
Everything in French sounds pretty, really,
I know, right?
doesn't it? Yeah. So, what other labels do you use of yourself?
I do come out and say that I'm autistic.
Hmm.
And I feel like this is relevant. I feel like a lot of autistic people, first,
Hmm.
there is research out there that I'm not going to cite properly, but there is research showing that autistic people are more likely to be trans than the general population is. And
Hmm.
trans people are more likely to be autistic. And there's something that goes along with it. And the way that I explain it is that in okay, in what I just said, I'm including non-binary in the trans label. That's just
Hmm.
parenthetical. I feel like it's because autistic people, we tend to make fewer assumptions about how the world should work. For we tend to not assume what is going on around us is normal or should be the way it is. So we question everything. I question the fact that everybody uses grass on their lawns, and I could go on and on about that topic. Um, and everybody looks at me a little bit weird because you're like, oh, everybody has grass on their lawns. What's the problem? Why are you questioning this? And it's like, well, because nothing's. I don't take anything for granted. And so,
Mm.
the same with gender. I think a lot of people, a lot of autistic people, they're like, so I'm supposed to do what? But I don't like those clothes. I don't like that demeanor. I don't like that role in society. Whatever it
Mm.
is, we are more likely to say, okay, well, I'm just changing it to be,
Mm.
I'm just going to change it.
Yeah, I love that.
Good.
Yeah, so what I was going to ask you was how you feel your experience is different compared to maybe what you've heard from others who may be using similar labels like autistic or non-binary or even queer,
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah,
And they're all wrapped up in each other, really.
yeah.
I feel like autism is kind of a queer thing. That it's queer to me is looking at things differently and coming at it from a different angle, and that was related to my sexuality and to my gender presentation and to my gender.
Mm, yeah. You work for an online magazine, is that right? The Queer Pittsburgh.
That's a volunteer position, but yes,
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
the
yeah.
editor.
Hmm.
And right now we're in a bit of a COVID slump, but it's a community run publication. So we publish things by and for the queer community of Pittsburgh. So I
Mm.
work with authors and try to help them say what they want to say in an article form. And I put together the style sheet and I do all the nitpicky stuff.
And how did you get involved in that?
I volunteered, when they started. I think it was about 2016 maybe. And I've just been plugging along ever since. And
Mm.
done some other writing for some other queer things. Like we have a QBerg, which is also a publication in Pittsburgh, and various other places.
Mm. And what have you learned from that with regards to say gender and maybe other people's gender journeys?
It's been really helpful because I've run into pretty much every combination that's out there. Um, I've been able
Mhm.
to work with and meet and enjoy the company of so many different people who are under the queer or trans umbrella. I think that as an older person, I'm not a millennial, but as a 43-year-old, which is kind of an older person in this arena, like I've had to learn a lot. The other thing is I was in the Middle East for 12 years. So I missed a lot of our national conversation and the sort of Western queer conversation because I didn't really have access to much queer stuff on the internet. So I had a lot of catching up to do, and I had a lot of learning to do. I had to learn, about etiquette surrounding asking for pronouns, and things like that.
Yeah. And how did
So
that, I mean, what was that like being in the Middle East, and presenting like as gender non-conforming, as it were, or like being gender non-conforming?
I got called sir a lot. I mostly I mostly presented it in a more feminine way than I usually do, or am comfortable with. I mean, at home I would wear what I wanted, but I just sort of dressed sort of simply and modestly when I was over there. I was in the UAE, and they're very comfortable with many Western norms, so but
Mhm.
not that one. So I was I would just I looked more female, but I still got mistaken for a man on the regular just because of my size and demeanor, and
Mhm.
that people were confused.
Yeah, yeah. Did you have a sense of safety there?
Personally, yes. If you didn't make, I knew a lot of queer people there, and if you didn't make it anyone's problem, no one was really going to. I mean, in a queer perspective. Now, a lot of women that I knew didn't feel safe, for example, walking down the street alone because they would get harassed if they looked at somebody the wrong way. But that didn't really happen to me. People would, again, because I'm very tall, and I would see a group of guys, in the distance, and are they gonna harass me? And then I'd see one maybe get up his courage to try to say something obnoxious and get close, and then like look up and say, no, no, that's not worth it." It's like- she could
Well, hooray
probably
for
eat
height.
me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Wow.
But I did get a lot of people saying, "Sir, sir."
Wow.
Not that I
Yeah.
should make up an accent, but
That's fair. Accents are fun. I like accents.
and they were making
Yeah.
fun of me too. So
There you go then. Yeah.
yeah.
Ah, yeah. So you say you've got or you've had a sense of gender nonconformity
Hmm.
since you were very young, would you say?
Hmm. Yeah. I have a lot of righteous indignation about the things that women and girls are not supposed to do, or were not supposed to do in the early 80s. And I just sort of I don't know, I was always the dad when we played house. Later on, I was like supposed to pretend I was so and so's boyfriend. So um that was middle school.
Okay.
That happened. But yeah, I always have. And in my brain, I just, in my own inner dialogue, I kind of don't really see myself as one way or the other. I really don't. When I dream, sometimes I've been a man in my dreams, and sometimes like, it's always been important to me to be strong and to be the one who's lifting everything. And I'm totally inept at, if there was a time in grad school I had a boyfriend, and oh, let me take that, that's heavy, not not a great way to keep a pretty boyfriend, which he was. but,
Oh.
um but yeah, I've always been I was very into weightlifting in college and grad school, so I was muscly and big.
Mm.
So and liked it too. I mean, that was a great big point of pride. It
Mhm.
always it always has been. If I see a muscle, I'm excited. Um And I remember, in high school, my best friend, who I'm still in touch with, she told me somewhat recently that in high school, she went for 3 months. She knew me after she met me. She didn't know if I was male or female.
Hmm.
And that's in high school.
Right.
So, it's been there. But my only example of that, unless I really dug, was, oh my God, we have this show, Saturday Night Live. I don't know if it makes it over there or not, but they had a character on it called Pat, who was
Hmm.
who no one could figure out, played by Julia Sweeney, who's apparently a sweetheart. And basically, I mean, this Pat looked so much like me. Big
Yeah.
glasses, and no one could tell whether they were male or female, and people were really awkward about it, and that was the joke. And it was like week after week. And so, in high school, or late middle school, people would say, "Oh, it's Pat."
Oh, yeah. So you're a parent.
Yes.
How did that come about? What do you feel I mean, how did that come about? I mean, we kind of know how it happened, right?
Well,
But there's a biology lesson. No, but like how does your identity and parenting fit together? I guess is what I mean. Yeah.
mhm. I didn't really, when she when my daughter is 7, and
Hmm.
when my daughter was about 4, that's when they're kind of working on gender and stuff like that. And
Mm.
we've always we've always known a lot of people from varying, different backgrounds and different kinds of people. And so she knew what trans was then. She knew examples of people, and she knew some people who were non-binary. And I was like, yeah, and it might be non-binary. And she's like, oh, okay. And I don't correct her on any pronouns or anything. She mostly uses she for me and calls me mommy. And
Hmm.
I'm not gonna take away mommy. You can find something, but you know what? I'm a non-binary mommy. It's just the way it goes.
That's
And
fair.
I like the sound of it. And but she does realize that that's what it means, that for me to be non-binary. And, oh, so you're kind of like my mom and my dad. And I was like, yeah, sort of, yeah. And yeah, she accepts it quite well. My current partner is trans, and she accepts him quite well. And she
Mm.
knows what that means. And she's figured stuff out. And it's been kind of a non-issue. I mean, really, she will tell other people, like, she'll tell, other adults or and people in other situations. She'll try to educate them and tell them what that is, and what you
That's so
do.
cool. Yeah.
And she'll try to encourage other people to get me to call me they or them. You know,
Hmm.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
Super sweet
That's
about
really
it.
great, actually. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
she's awesome, and she's like, queen of the Pride Parade when we're not under quarantine.
Yeah.
She's got like her little rainbow tutu, and she's having a
Mm.
great time, and everybody thinks she's adorable and gives her candy. So yeah.
I'm sure she's happy about that. Yeah.
hmm Ultimately,
Yeah.
my gender and sexual orientation has caused her to get a lot of candy. That's how she feels about it.
That's a win. That's a win-win then, isn't it? I suppose.
hmm
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Ah. So what do you have anything or any advice for other parents when it comes to, I guess, being a non-binary parent, I suppose?
I think, honestly, I mean, ask me again when she's like 15, but so far it's been
Mm.
really easy. She's, just that part of our life. Kids can understand this. They don't need to know any like deep details, but they get it, and they can explain it, and it's fine, like, this is not something that we need to worry about our kids. The kids are all right. They're exploring too. I know, like a 9-year-old non-binary kid, they're great. They do what they do, and it's fine. I mean, I do make an effort to normalize it and introduce her to other people. She knows other non-binary people. She likes them. She knows other trans people and other queer people, and it's just a non-issue. I mean, again, ask me when she's in therapy in her mid-30s, but um, who knows?
Yeah, yeah, totally. Yeah, I think kids make things. It is simple, isn't it, for kids?
Mhm.
Really,
Yeah,
it is. We can learn from that for sure. Yeah.
absolutely. Everybody gets all up in arms about the kids and the kids and the kids, but really, oh my God, it's easy.
Mm, yeah. So, what would you say is the best part about being non-binary and queer?
The best part of being non-binary is that I can pretty much pull off both bathrooms. So I just have to check the line. And if the line for the women's is out the door, I'm going to the men's because half the
That's
time
fair.
nobody's in that line. I've never been questioned in a men's bathroom. I have been questioned in a women's bathroom. I think that's fantastic. Really, the best part is right now is that I feel I can kind of, once I put a label on it, and it became so much easier to explain. And so
Mm,
individual things where individual instances where I didn't conform one way or the other, because I'm not really butch. I'm just not, I'm not really femme. I'm not really butch. I'm not really, you know, I, I'm somewhere in the middle. And so
mm,
many things sort of relaxed for me. It was
mm,
like when in my mid 30s, I finally got the autism diagnosis, for years
mm,
wondering what was going on there. And suddenly so many things were explained. And then I felt like I had permission,
mm,
whether it's worrying about facial hair or worrying about looking and acting a certain way or wearing certain clothes.
mm,
That's sort of, I do what I want. I have a
mm,
permit. I do what I want. So giving myself permission to do those things, and to
mm,
not be freaked out when people thought I was a man. And now I can
mm,
just be like, yeah, no, that's it. People are gonna do what they're gonna
mm.
do.
Yeah, brilliant. What is something you wish, or what is something you'd want cis people to know?
Trans people and non-binary people are not a threat to feminism. They are not where you should be focusing your energies. They're your negative energies anyway. They're not where you should be fighting, because we're in most cases just trying to live our lives, like use the bathroom, live in an apartment or a house, eat dinner, that kind of thing. Like, we're just trying to get by, and there's no, you know this battle has been created, or controversy or anything like that, and people have become politicized. And the fact is, everybody's just trying to get by, just like you. And if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it.
Right? Yeah.
This is and yeah, getting it right isn't rocket science, and making mistakes isn't a disaster. You just, I guess I would add that one thing. I was working for a diversity nonprofit that's like an NGO here in the States. And I talked to the CEO one day, and she said, "Oh yeah, I was talking to, some business leader, and he said he had a chance to hire a non-binary person, but he didn't think he could get the pronouns right, so he didn't hire them." And I was like, "Oh my God, this is my boss talking to me." And I'm thinking, that's a terrible story. First of all, I don't want to hear that. And second of all, no one cares if you mess up sometimes. Hire me anyway. It's fine.
Right?
No
Yeah.
one cares.
Mm.
Let's just move on.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do. They do. I think most people do want to get it right, and they do want
Hmm.
to do the right thing and say the right thing, and they're worried about making mistakes. And I think I was the same for a long time. Instead of, like, I would rather say nothing than say the wrong thing,
Mm,
and that's not helpful. It's understandable. I think it's where a lot of people are. And unfortunately, the ones who don't care about offending, they do say stuff, so
yeah.
it's kind of like it should be the other way around, really. So, yeah, I think it's more important to be willing to be wrong and do say something and do speak up. But it's tricky, and I think you have to be ready for that, to be fair, because I think for a long time I was the same way. Yeah.
Interesting.
Mm.
Well, I'm glad that you are open to getting to know people of all genders. How did you get into this topic for your podcast?
Well, I met my partner, who is non-binary and trans, about 8 and a bit years
Okay.
ago. And since then, I've just met loads of, trans people, non-binary people, otherwise gender non-conforming people. And we came up with an idea for a book like years ago when the 50 Shades of Grey book was out.
Oh,
It was
yeah.
all great, which I got bored halfway through book 2, so I did good. But yeah, but then lots of other 50 Shades projects started to pop up, didn't they? And we came up with an idea of saying something like a book of 50 stories of local gender diverse people, just to demonstrate the diversity of gender in like here in Norwich. And that kind of, we come up with a lot of ideas. That's kind of what we do. And the idea got shelved. And there's some years later, like a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, it sort of just started popping into my head more and more. So I thought I'm going to have some conversations and just start with talking to a friend, recording it, and then maybe transcribing it. And then I have one book chapter, only 50 to go. So no
Oh,
pressure.
cool.
Yeah. And then I thought, well, rather than having this transcribed, why not use the audio? So then the idea for the podcast was born. And I've just been taking it one step at a time, because in a way it was like it felt quite an overwhelming thing, and it felt like a big commitment. And
Mm-hmm.
we can easily talk ourselves out of things, can't we? So yeah, and in the end, I recorded more and more conversations. I think in 2019 I recorded a handful. In 2020, early 2020, I recorded a few more. And then when I had about 8 or 10, like 8 I was definitely going to use, I thought, okay, I'm just going to start this. I'm going to do this. So I just suddenly just put an episode out because I was overthinking stuff. It's like, oh yeah, podcast, I need music and I need this and I need that. And I just got to a stage, I was like, oh, just fuck it. Just do it. Just
Yeah.
put an episode out. Just do it.
Awesome.
So I did. Yeah. And then I was like, shit, what have I done? now I need to keep this up. So, and it just kind of went, I just put one foot in front of the other, to be honest. And it's just been going from there. And I've now got 30 episodes out, and I've been doing one a
Awesome.
week, this 1 week, since
Okay.
July last year. So, yeah, I'm planning ahead a bit more now, which is good. So I'm not doing it last minute anymore, because after those 8 episodes ran out, I was like, okay, what am I going to do next week? So about 10 weeks, I was flying by the seat of my pants thinking, what am I going to do? Do you want to be on a podcast? Just asking people left, right, and center. Do you want to be on a podcast? Should we do it tomorrow? So that just got a bit crazy and unsustainable. So yeah, so now I plan a bit better. So that's good. So yeah, hopefully things will tick over. And I look forward to actually seeing how it's going to evolve, because one thing that is coming up more and more lately is the whole discussion of I am like a cis woman, or I identify as a cis woman, talking about myself, obviously. Because some of the people I've spoken to in the podcast, they say I don't use identify as, because that
Yeah.
just feel right, because that's not, it's not up for debate. This is who I am. It's not who I identify as. Yeah, so that's been an interesting one. So I'm thinking the question I ask at the beginning of the podcast will probably change, because I start with how do you identify, and I didn't really see anything wrong with that. And I guess for some people don't mind it, and other people say, look, I prefer not to say that. I prefer to say I am. And that's fine. They don't give me a hard time about it,
That
And
I think that if someone says, "How do you identify?" I feel free to describe my identity. Whereas if somebody says something like, "Well, Rachel identifies as non-binary," sometimes that can be used to dismiss. I am non-binary, but dismiss that as a like as a coat I put on, or a fashion that I'm trying on, without not, yeah, just that it's not an integral part, that it's like a fashion. Same with preferred pronouns. People just say, okay, what are your pronouns? But if somebody asks, I'm not gonna, I don't know. It's like saying, what's your preferred name?
Yeah, isn't it? Yeah, that's a whole debate as well, isn't it? I can kind of see where people are coming from, because I know people like yourself, you say they them is what you like the most, and you love hearing
Yeah.
it.
For me, it would be that is kind of a preference. That is absolutely true. For somebody like my boyfriend who's a trans man, it's not what he prefers. It's
That's it.
it's he.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. Yeah. So it's very person dependent. And I think that's probably where the confusion comes in with people.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
preferred pronouns. Okay, this and that. Yeah. There's a lot. Doesn't mean there's a lot to learn about it all, isn't there?
Right.
Wow. Yeah.
There is. Yeah. And it's constantly evolving. So,
Mm.
there should be a newsletter. This is how to talk about it today.
Yeah. And I mean, even looking back at the episodes I've done, I feel like I want to explore more other gender identities, because a lot of people have been non-binary. A lot of people have been trans. I've had one agender person, so that's been interesting. But yeah, there's so many other labels to play with, so I feel like I want to explore more of that and just talk to more and more people about it, because it's just really fascinating. Yeah.
I want to figure out, I want to know, and here's somebody who identifies as agender. I want to know what they think the difference is between agender and non-binary.
Yeah, they did address that, I believe, a bit. It was Alf, episode 24, I believe. Yeah, they talked about it. That might be an interesting one to listen to. So, yeah, but then again, that is one person who's agender, so their story will be different from maybe another person who
Absolutely.
identifies with agender. So, yeah, it's just such an individual thing every time. So interesting.
Yes, very.
Is there anything else you'd like to add? Something we haven't talked about that you think is important to talk about?
I don't know. I feel like we covered a lot.
We did.
I think a lot of times people will do this, and I think it's a human thing. It's a normal thing. But when you're with a partner, you kind of want to be attractive to that person. So you play up that side of yourself. And I did that for many years. I think different partners that I had, I would play up the masculine or feminine side of myself, depending on who I was dating. So, I would date a pretty femme woman, and my voice would go down a couple of octaves, and I would, so I think that took a while. And it was really when I was dating someone who was bisexual, who identifies as bisexual, who is bisexual, that I felt like I can be both, and it's good. And so, I am his big boyfriend, and I am his girlfriend, and I'm definitely daddy sometimes, but so it goes back and forth. And I feel like that has really freed me more than anything to sort of live in this space and feel attractive and desired in this space, and feel wanted for the ambiguity that I have, and that feels good. Whereas, throughout my life, I kind of, well, am I this? Am I that? I'm just going to play up whatever the person I'm into sort of wants.
Yeah, that sounds really great, actually. So it's like almost freeing yourself from mostly gender roles, really, isn't it?
Really, yeah. And now that it's gone, it's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
I do what I want.
Yay.
Again.
Totally. Yeah. I love that.
I found a place that feels comfortable for myself.
That's great. Thank you very much for talking to me about all this, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. And it was so good to have an ally.
Yay.
It's so good to have an ally in various contexts.
That's great. It's great to be called an ally. Thank you. That's what I aim for.
Yay.
You can find out more details on the website at 50shadesofgender.com/Rachel-Lang, where you can also read the transcript, and you can find Rachel via QueerPGH.com and QBerg.com, and their art on Instagram at Rachel Magdalene Lang. Thank you for listening to the 50 Shades of Gender podcast. You can find us online at 50shadesofgender.com and on social media. If you'd like to support us, please consider becoming a patron on Patreon. Plans start from only $1 a month, Visit patreon.com/50 Shades of Gender for more details. We hope you will listen again. Until then, stay curious and open-minded. You've just frozen. Might have had a glitch.
Oh, you looked very concerned and you didn't laugh at my joke, so I assumed that you... Okay, I assumed you were judging me, and
No, not at all.
I think that was it.
Yeah.
I don't know how it all fits together.
It's all good.
And I hope I wasn't too just disjointed. And if you want to do the whole thing again, it'll be completely different next time.
That's fair.